Now, Dave Rubin went on to the Joe Rogan podcast, and as you guys know, because I talked about it in some depth, not as much as I wish I had, but I had gone into some of the stuff. I know the Majority Report went into it pretty well, but really it had quite an overall effect because up until now, the Young Turks had kept their silence. Everyone at the Young Turks had kept their silence on Dave Rubin, but this has absolutely unleashed the Young Turks on them, whether it be Cenk Uygur shitting on Dave Rubin, and then Anna Kasparian exposing why he actually left the Young Turks, for money, of course. Now, David Pakman, it was sort of his interview with Dave Rubin that first really showed how much of a moron Dave Rubin actually is. And so someone asked David Pakman what his thoughts were on the Dave Rubin, Joe Rogan podcast. And this is pretty important, of course, also because I guess whether or not they're friends is actually hanging in the balance. So they're not even aware if they're friends at this point, or at least David Pakman isn't. So check this out.
On Dave Rubin's last interview with Joe Rogan, I only saw a little bit. And what I saw was really bad, okay? It's like, I think it was a 3-hour interview. I just don't have time to watch a 3-hour interview, unfortunately. I'm not bragging about being busy. I think that's not something to brag about, but I just don't have time to watch a 3-hour interview. The portion that people sent me was when Dave Rubin, there were 2 portions that were just really not good, and I'd love to talk to Dave Rubin about this anytime. He's welcome on the show anytime, and it's not, I don't think he's a bad person for making these arguments. I just think he's wrong. He was arguing against government regulation on the basis using home builders as an example, which is just a disastrous example because actually not enough regulation on home builders has led to absolute disasters for homeowners. So it was just an embarrassingly bad example. And then number 2, it was a section about the government not being good at doing things, and he used some example about UPS, USPS, and shipping live baby chickens, and it was just a total implosion. I mean, just absolute total implosion. And he was all sweaty during it, and I don't know if he was sweaty because he was getting nervous at how bad the implosion was, or maybe Joe Rogan keeps the studio really hot. But it was not good. It was not a good thing, and that's all I saw of it. And it's possible that there were other parts that were really good, but I didn't see them.
Yep, David Pakman is definitely 100% right here. It was pretty damn embarrassing. The idea of going at regulations for construction specifically, it all just turned out to be a ginormous disaster, and I'll tell you why. It's because had Joe Rogan not known about kind of construction so well because he wouldn't have, let's say hypothetically, he didn't have personal experience with it, he would have probably just gone along with whatever bullshit Dave Rubin was spewing. But because he knew about it personally, he was able to just run roughshod on Dave Rubin and just completely school him on it. These people are cutting corners, and if you don't have regulations, you're going to put people in danger because these problems may not manifest for 5 to 10 years. And so you have to have some sort of protection for the consumer. And as you guys know, David Pakman's interview with Dave Rubin was quite embarrassing on Dave Rubin's part. David Pakman, asked him, how can you support single-payer healthcare but be a classical liberal? Those two things are diametrically opposed to each other. He goes on to describe Obamacare, not single-payer healthcare, as to what he supports. And then David Pakman goes, Dave Rubin originally says, okay, I have a lot of capital costs, so higher tax rates are not good. But then David Pakman follows that up with saying, capital costs are tax deductible. So wouldn't that incentivize you to further drive your profits by buying more capital? And his response essentially is, So, yeah, even David Pakman knows this is pretty embarrassing. And whether or not David Pakman and Dave Rubin are still even friends is up in the air, which is kind of interesting.